The struggles that we have with the men who are currently incarcerated is that they're being systematically oppressed because of who they are and how connected they were to this struggle. And you know, they're being isolated, they're being thrown into solitary confinement, they're being denied their spirituality. And the struggle that they're facing in there is the same struggle that our people were facing 100 years ago when the government was imposing these laws to say that it's illegal to be Indian. You know, you can't practice your ways. Out here at the potlatch, you couldn't have it. Out in my territory, we couldn't play our traditional games. We couldn't have ceremonies, or we'd be thrown in jail. We'd be incarcerated. It was illegal to be Indian. And now it's illegal to speak up for the water. It's illegal to speak up for your rights. Well, if you fight hard and long enough, they'll eventually, your voice will actually be heard, because if you look at it today, our ceremonies are coming back. The potlatches are back. Our culture is back. Our games are coming back. We're rising again as a people. And that should show us that the oppression that we're facing today and not being able to say no to these companies, that it's not always going to be like that. And we have to be the responsible ones and lay down the proper foundations for our children and our grandchildren. Because if we don't, they're going to be in the same shoes as us. And we don't want that. We want them to have a better future, as our grandparents took care of for us. And it's always been a constant struggle, but that struggle will become better if we all are able to do it together and we're all able to push forward and be brave enough to say no and to be brave enough to demand consent. Never mind consultation. That's legal jargon that was imposed upon us by a Supreme Court case decision. We want our consent. We demand that you get our consent. For no. We consent, you can say no. No, you don't have my consent. And the other thing is people often wonder, you know, when is the best time to intervene when you're up against a corporate entity that's coming to destroy your lands? Well, first of all, you get them before they even get to test, which is what was happening out in our territory. We didn't want them to test. And that's where the struggle starts. You know, you don't allow them to test, no. You don't allow them to come into your territories and destroy the land. You don't allow them to come and, you know, plunder and destroy everything. You don't allow them to do that. You don't allow it to come to an environmental assessment, because part of the environmental assessment is consultation. And once it gets to that point, half of your struggle that you had an advantage over before that it diminishes. They're dealing the cards then. You know, you have to be able to play at this from a multi-angled approach. You have to be able to approach it from different angles. You have to use your supporters, because Indigenous people aren't going to be given information from the government. Really, to be honest, if we ask for information, they're just going to ignore us or deny us. But if you have a non-Indigenous supporter or a non-Indigenous organization asking for information, it's provided. And this is usually the imbalance that we have between supporters and non-supporters, because the Indigenous struggle is so strong when the Indigenous people are standing up, and the supporters are just the ones given the information and they don't know what to do with it. We need to share that information with one another so that we can move forward in this. And it's the Indigenous struggle, but it's the supporters who are going to be able to bring in these support systems that is going to aid it. Because during our occupation and blockade of that site, it was the non-Indigenous supporters who were bringing us the food. It was the non-Indigenous supporters who were bringing us the clothes. They were bringing us, you know, supplies, and without that, we weren't able to sustain camp, because it wasn't the best area for camp, because you're along the highway. And there's a compound right there, and there was forest, but it really, because you remember what he said, we have new growth forests, so any animals, you know, they're minimal, and you see them every now and again. But with hundreds and hundreds of people coming through every day, it's difficult to try to sustain that, especially with the small provisions that you have. So it was kind of like a potluck. You know, everybody's bringing their food and everybody's sharing, everybody's having, you know, everybody's sharing their stories. And every day there was at least, there was talking circles every day where the supporters were meeting up and they were sitting in circles around the fire and deciding where we were going to go and how we were going to move forward. In the beginning, a lot of the non-Indigenous supporters were trying to steer the way it was going to go. And we were like, no, we're staying here, we're actually living here, you know, like, listen to what we have to say. And we fought this battle before, like when we fought it with the oil company in Unamagi, the non-Indigenous supporters weren't supporters then, it was their movement. And we said, fine, you wanna do this, then you can do it. But you'll come back, you'll come asking for our help. And that's what they did. And they told us that our rights were the only thing that were going to be able to save them. And they came for our help. And it's when that's realized, it's when the movement is able to move in a positive way. And this is what happened at the Unity camp at 134 in Rexton. It's the non-Indigenous supporters realized they needed our help. We needed theirs, but they really needed ours. Because what they were worried about was not only their water, they were worried about their properties. Because they were thinking, okay, my $50,000 home, once fracking gets put through, it's going to be worth $5,000 once my water's gone. You have to think about it, you know, like people think on different levels. So if you're going to present why it's wrong, well, that's another reason why it's wrong. And you're able to get people who are worried about their properties and their money in their pocket on the side of the movement, because it's a true story. If they're not going to, if your water's gone and you have no good water, you're a cottage. Cottages are cheap. It's going to be no better than reservation life. So we're adamant. But, you know, we're adamant that, you know, we need to protect that water because it's the only thing we have left. And we have to really realize that we're not greater than it. It's actually greater than us. And when you come to that understanding that you put it above yourself because it connects you to everything else, and you can't be greater than that. You know, the only thing greater than that is the creator, and that's the creator element around here if you think about it. It's what connects everything from the past into the future. So I was really honored, you know, I didn't just learn about all of this stuff. It was an ongoing process, you know. It wasn't just I woke up one morning and, you know, miraculously, oh my goodness, the water's sacred and we have to stand up, protect it. It was a long, long struggle, you know, where I had to learn. I had to sit there and I had to really understand. And I like what my brother here says, you know, it's not understand, it's when you understand, you know, on the inside, when your spirit and your soul understands it, you understand it, how sacred the water is, and it's actually funny that I'm even end up in the West Coast territories when I think about it, because this is where the water walk started in this area when they did the one across Turtle Island. I was one of the organizers who helped that. I helped them out through, I didn't meet them face to face, and I know I say that face to face contact is important, but if you don't have the ability to help somebody who's like not there, you could do whatever, you can do whatever's in your power to help them. And they taught me a lot through phone calls, and you know, it wasn't just on the computer. They taught me a lot about how sacred the water was. And they carried the water from the West Coast, from the East Coast, from the North and from the South, and they carried it to the center. And they spoke about how sacred the water was, and they explained to me, and they made me really fully understand how sacred it was, because I heard how sacred it was, and I knew how it was connected here and there, but they gave me a better overall understanding. And once I knew that, there was no turning back. There was no way I could just sit there and just let somebody destroy it. And sometimes you get so far into it that, you know, you tend to like, oh, you get angry inside, you're looking at things and you're like, I can't believe they're doing this, you know, how dare they do this to the land? But once we learn to harness our energies and to be able to put them in a good way and to be able to move those energies towards doing things that are positive and, you know, doing things that we like to do. Because you can't be doing something in the movement if you don't like to do it. Because I like to say, how far am I willing to go? Like I said today, I'm willing to die. But others aren't willing to do that. Some people, you know, they're willing to, you know, dedicate 1 day a week. So you have to know where that dedication lies, and there's sacrifices that go along with that. I'm not going to lie. There are things that you have to give up in order to give a better future for others. I'm a mother. I'm a mother to a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old. And my son just turned 10 recently, and he picked up a magazine and he read an article that was written about me. And he looked at my mom and he said, Mom, Granny, he said, what is this? And they tried to keep him away from it. Like, they didn't want him to see what was happening because my children are scared of cops. And most of the time when it was in the media, it had to do with me and the cops. So he read it and he said, what's going on here? Why are they doing this? And then my mom had to talk to him and explain to him what was going on. But she said, I'm too modest, I don't even like to repeat her, but she said, it's because your mother's brave. And I told my son, no, it's not because I'm brave. It's because you give me that strength to do it. I said, it's because, you know, we're able to connect all as a family, and you're only as good as your support is. And once you're able to treat yourself good, you treat your family good. And when you treat yourself good and your family good, they treat you good. And this is the kind of relationship that me and my family have with one another, which is why I have that good support, and which is why, unfortunately, I miss out on a lot of my children's lives. But when I'm with them, I give them my whole heart and my whole dedication. I try to turn all of this off, and I try to turn the world off until they're asleep. But they're what changed me. You know, if it wasn't for them, just like Cody, that's what changed him. And this is what we have to keep in our minds, that, you know, we have to allow our children to change us, because they're our future. And we have to develop our relationships with them, whether it be for them to empower us, or whether it be for them to empower us so we can give them a better life, or for them to empower us so that we can provide them the best that they can have at that moment. So in closing, I just wanted to thank you all, and just to let you know, support your local Indigenous resistance, you know, support your local Indigenous communities in their struggle, you know. You see one of your Indigenous people on the streets, buy them a coffee, you know, like, show a heart, show compassion. Because I've seen a lot of that. I was going through a hard time this morning walking through. I just wanted to wake them all up and say, you know, come on, let's go to the band office, you know, Tim Hortons, and buy them all coffee. But, you know, we have to start showing our love. And that's where it comes from, you know, and I think that's one message that we weren't able to pass on today. It's not, that's what we're showing. You know, this is how we show our love. We show it through protecting the water. We show it through trying to provide our children with a better life. Everybody shows love a different way, but everybody has to start to show it. You know, instead of holding on to that anger and self-pity and all of these bad things that we could be hanging on to, we need to push that love. You know, and I want to thank you guys all for, you know, inviting me to your territory, and I'm honored and I'm blessed to have been here, and it's beautiful here, and I've never been out this way, but it's really beautiful, and I really thank you. So thank you for your time, and I guess it's question period now.